Psychotel is not a prison, and it's not a place for healing. It exists as a neutral space between truth and the criminal mind. A room where masks fall off, and what's hidden is finally laid bare. And today, the door to room 219 opens to welcome an unsettling guest. A man who lived by all the rules, who did everything right. The perfect husband, a devoted father, and a trusted neighbor. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, and never raised a red flag. People once asked him to speak at parenting seminars, and he chaired school meetings. His house was always tidy, the lights on every evening, and kids dropped by to play. His wife used to say he was the pillar of the family. Until one day, police found a hidden basement behind his kitchen, a place where victims had been kept for weeks before vanishing without a trace. There were no screams, no witnesses, because he always shut the doors, and always taught his children to stay silent about adult matters. No one truly understood what had taken place inside that seemingly normal home. No one believed a man like him, who gave speeches about discipline and moral values, could be capable of such things. But how does someone live two opposite lives? And more terrifyingly, can the true nature of a person be completely hidden? He grew up in a family where everything was right. His father, a retired soldier, was strict, stoic, and followed rules without exception. His mother, a primary school teacher, ran the household with obsessive order. Nothing was ever out of place, and words were chosen carefully. Soft mistakes were not punished with yelling, but cold, prolonged silence. From an early age, he learned how to survive, where being wrong meant being invisible. Every action was watched, every emotion repressed, even when he cried after falling. His father didn't scold or comfort him. He simply said, "Men don't do that." When he spilled water on his school books, his mother didn't scream. She quietly cleaned up and refused to look at him for an entire week. Instead of learning to express emotions, he learned to mimic. He smiled when expected, nodded when asked, stood up straight, and got top grades. A perfect child on the outside, but hollow within. And no one asked what he liked. No one ever taught him how to say no, how to be angry, or how to admit fear. Those feelings were forbidden, buried tightly beneath the polished shell of good behavior. The first psychological fracture likely came during adolescence, when he lied to go out. His parents didn't shout or punish him. They just stared across the dinner table. They said simply, "We didn't raise you to be this kind of person." That sentence haunted him for years, a verdict that his real self was shameful. From that moment, he stopped trying to express anything at all. He created two worlds, an outer one where he was flawless, and an inner one where suppressed emotions festered and grew. There were no signs of mental illness, no violent episodes, and no disturbing incidents. But every now and then, he did things that made people uncomfortable. One day, a bird flew into the house by accident, and while everyone panicked, he calmly grabbed it, held it in his fist until it stopped moving. He then placed the body neatly on the windowsill. When asked why, he replied, "It shouldn't have come in." No one thought it was alarming. "He's just tidy like his dad," they said. He studied to become a teacher, switched to an office job, and married. He raised his family exactly the way he was raised, orderly, composed, and disciplined. A life pre-programmed for success, with no system errors and no outbursts. But late at night, after everyone had gone to sleep, he sat alone in the kitchen. Not reading, not working, just sitting in the dark, waiting for a silent command. A voice that had been buried for years. It wasn't madness. It was something colder. A need to be in absolute control of another human being, just as he was controlled. He didn't start with a plan to kill. There was no sudden breakdown. It began slowly, methodically, just like everything else in his life. His first victim wasn't a stranger. It was an 8-year-old boy from next door. He was a child who often came over to play with his son every Saturday. The boy was energetic, loud, always talking, and one afternoon he spilled water. He didn't yell at the child. He simply led him down to the basement storage room. He said he was going to teach him a lesson. Then he locked the door. No one heard a thing, and he later told his wife the boy went home early. The boy was reported missing that evening, and he helped search and print flyers. No one suspected the kind neighbor. Perfect man. What drew him back wasn't the thrill of murder. It was control. Having someone completely under his rules, deciding when they ate and if they lived. For him, it wasn't torture. It was simply behavior correction. The basement wasn't a bloody dungeon. It was clean, cold, and soundproof. He recreated his childhood bedroom. A single bed, a wooden chair, a weak light, no chains, no shouting, just his constant presence, sitting silently in the corner. When the child cried, he said nothing. When they begged, he calmly replied, "Don't make a scene. This place needs order." Over 6 years, he abducted and killed 7 minors from the neighborhood. No one was snatched from the street. All had willingly entered his home. He didn't attack immediately. He waited, letting them feel safe, then shifted his tone. His method was consistent. No knives, no choking. He isolated them. No light, no food for 2 days, no sense of time, pure psychological collapse. When they finally broke down, he would ask, "Are you ready to behave now?" If they said yes, he gave them food. Then the cycle repeated, until silence. When they died, he cleaned the bodies and wrapped them carefully in plastic. He buried them in the backyard, an area he called his garden project. There were no obvious serial killer signatures, but a pattern emerged. All victims were expressive children, loud, rebellious, or emotional. In his eyes, they were behavioral problems. When arrested, he said, "I didn't kill them. I taught them silence." The case that broke it all was the 8th, an 11-year-old girl. She was smart, observant. When taken to the basement, she didn't scream. She observed, noticed the dead camera light, and found a ventilation shaft. With her own blood, she wrote, "Help me," on the wall facing the camera. His wife spotted the message while checking the app for rodents. He was calm when arrested, didn't ask questions, just put on his coat. The basement revealed everything. Her, still alive, 7 school files, and a logbook. Backyard graves were each labeled with a small card. Lesson complete. What exposed him wasn't a mistake in his methods, it was a child's instinct. The last girl didn't panic, she calculated, and her message was caught by camera. It was seen by the only person who had never questioned him, his wife. When the girl's mother called, his wife lied and said she had left early. That small lie, that slight misalignment in his script, triggered suspicion. While he was at work, she opened the basement camera and saw the red message. She took their child, went to the police, and turned over the footage. At 3 a.m., officers entered the house and found the girl dehydrated but alive. He was arrested at work, a modest educational office, and he didn't resist. In the car, he said only one thing: "I should have dealt with it sooner." The investigation lasted 20 hours. They found no blood, no violence, only precision. Every item had a place. Every death was documented, and in court, he didn't plead. He simply described his actions as necessary corrections. Psychiatrists found him mentally sound. The sentence, life imprisonment, no parole. His wife changed her name, moved away, and neighbors erased him from memory. The once proud home stood empty. The backyard sealed off. In a remote wing of Psychotel, he remains, calm, upright, repeating one sentence. They never learned how to behave. It's hard to accept that one person can live 2 lives in one body. A model father, always early to school meetings, raising polite children. And a killer of children who simply couldn't follow the rules. Miroir. He didn't kill for pleasure. He killed to correct, to eliminate deviation. Each child was a mirror of what he had buried inside: chaos and emotion. By silencing them, he silenced the part of himself he was never allowed to be. Unlike many killers, he came from a home of discipline, but no affection. No love, just standards. He wasn't taught to be human. He was taught to be correct. And when being correct becomes the only morality, anyone who strays is a threat. The horror here isn't insanity, it's clarity. He knew what he was doing. He understood the law, but he believed he was outside it. His world needed no screaming, no blood, only a closed room. And enough time to rebuild the invisible box he grew up in with him holding the key. Psychotel does not judge. It records. But before the door to room 219 closes, we are left with a single question regarding the faces we trust. Are they just perfectly rehearsed replicas of something never allowed to be named?